Okay, Adrian, I'm super excited to interview you and have conversations with you about your life, work, and all the good stuff. So please introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Adrian. I use they, them pronouns, and I am an autistic ADHD adult working in the field of speech language pathology. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to work with kids. And I kind of knew at that age too that I wanted to work with elementary aged and up kind of pediatrics. And being in the field of speech language pathology, like that's the pathway a lot of people take. And so it was really easy for me to just kind of take that path and find myself working with the population that I do. What I didn't expect was that I would spend so long working in early intervention with the birth to 3 year olds. I thought I would be like my whole career working with like birth up to 21. But I did take a year working only with birth to 3, and now I'm mostly like birth to 9. That was hard. I think that was probably the hardest part of getting into the field, is going through so much education where what we're learning is that like the ideas that we're fixing. And I knew that that was never going to be the goal that I had for my clients, but that was
Mhm.
kind of the lesson that they were trying to impart on us, that we could like get in there and make these kids appear typical. And like that never really jived with me. I think getting into community spaces early during my career, like during my early career and during grad school, even before grad school, was so important to
Mhm.
me because it like helped me see the wider view. It helped me see the actual people who lived as neurodivergent people with their own experience, and get to know what they wanted out of treatment, what they wanted out of therapy, what mattered to them when it came to AAC, which ultimately ended up being something that I'm working towards specializing in. Getting involved with like parents of autistic kids and just kind of getting myself out of the classroom as much as I could. And part of why I was doing that was because I was discovering I was autistic at the same time and neurodivergent. And it just, there was so much that I was learning that just didn't quite ring true for me as like something that I felt applied to the wider world. It felt very sterile, academic, medical.
Mm.
And that just wasn't me. It didn't, I don't know. I felt like I could leave it in the classroom that way. I think part of that journey too, like I had been masking most of my life up to that point because I didn't know that I was autistic. I didn't know that I was ADHD. And so in some ways that kind of helped me because I was still in the process of kind of breaking out of my shell. And I feel very lucky for the cohort that I had because everybody was really accepting, even though the material we were learning maybe didn't feel quite right to me. I felt connected to my classmates and I felt like I could kind of come out of myself and get to know me better through them. So that helped me kind of get through to the point of being in my career. By the time that I started my practice as a clinician and working in a clinic, actually making connections with the clients that I was working with these neurodivergent kids, and starting to see almost almost like a mirror of like I felt the way that you feel. I've been where you are. It gave me a lot of hope that there was some way that I could practice that could be safe and affirming for these kids. So I think that got me through a lot of my early career when I was working in a clinic that maybe wasn't as neuro-affirming as I would have liked. I was able to kind of create my own neuro-affirming space in my office where these kids could choose if they wanted the door open or closed. They could choose what they were doing, what they needed out of their environment. It felt freeing for me
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
could really do that myself. Oh gosh, I haven't been in a clinic space for a couple years now, but when I was in a clinic space, I had like my desk, I had a little corner that I kind of personalized to be like a sensory corner for the kids. I had like a soft foam puzzle mat on the floor. Some of the kids, it was like a puzzle, so they would pull out like the pieces of it, and like sometimes that was our whole session.
Right.
If the kids were on the floor, I was on the floor. So I always made sure there were things that were comfortable for me and for them. I had a kid-sized table. I had some shelves where we could put some of their favorite things on. I had my own kind of storage as well for both like my clinic materials and for like my therapy materials too. So I really miss that setup that I had. Nowadays, I work out of my car, so I have like
Yeah.
bins in the back of my car where I've organized. I have some toys, but I focused a lot on books because not every family has the same access to books, and so I like to just bring a couple in and have them in my session. So I have a lot of books. I even had a lot of books in the clinic. I had a whole shelf dedicated to them, so that's always been big in my career. Yeah, I think I mentioned that I'm later diagnosed. So my official diagnosis was last year, or maybe December 2024 or January 2025, somewhere in there. I decided to go ahead and get a full assessment because I was sure, but also at the same time, I felt like I couldn't be confident in sharing my experience with my clients who had gone through this intensive process of getting a diagnosis if I hadn't kind of shared that experience with them. And so I made that decision to get a private evaluation with a therapist that I trusted. And it was transformative for me. Like I had talked about it before that point, but to see somebody write out all of the things I knew about myself, but in their words, it really gave me a lot of perspective on my sensory profile and my daily needs and who I am. And I bring that now with me to almost every session. I relate my experience for the parents and kind of give them a model of what the future could look like for their child. Of course, it's going to be different for everybody, but I think through being me, parents get to see this really positive future for their child, and that's been so like meaningful in my career and meaningful in my sessions. It makes a world of difference, I think, to connect on that level and to be openly me. Um, Before I started my career, I had this fear that I would never get the opportunity to be just myself openly. I didn't really know who I was. So to be at this point now, looking back, like I'm just so thankful. Like I work for a company with a very openly neurodivergent boss. I talk about my experience with her all the time, and I get to just kind of go at my pace. I get to talk about things the way I want to, and people just accept that about me. And I think that's really unique and really special about my career now. I think it's something that I incorporate really naturally into all of my sessions, whether I'm talking about it explicitly to parents or not, because my approach is very play-based and very child-led. If a child is doing something, I'm following their lead. With some of my older clients, I do include some more intentionality in it. Like I have a specific kit that I'll bring into some sessions where there's like um, different textures, different things to listen to, different things to look at. I encourage parents to have available of their own things that we can put in our mouth. I know some of my clients like ice chips, like that's their go-to. I'm also a cold snack type person. Actually, I like a variety plate. I tend to do like something a little salty, something a little crunchy, something a little sour, cold, stuff like that. I've always loved having like ice cream or popsicles available. And I learned it was an actual real technique that some therapists will teach their like clients, like go grab an ice pack when you're stressed out or when you're having anxiety. And I just did it really naturally, which was cool. I also have like my own bucket of sensory things. I like slimes or like squishy balls. I like something kind of like weighted and heavy that can spin but is quiet. I have a box that I made out of spare fleece like fabric that I made blankets out of, and I made it so that I could like braid some yarn and fleece together or unroll and re-roll some. I have some that are Velcroed together, so I get really creative. I'm also like a movement person. I like to do like a dance break or something like that, or a stretch break or a yoga break, things like that, where I get a little bit of movement in. Um, I am, however, like really sensitive to sound, so I actually wear like loop earplugs, or I have like oh, behind me, I have my noise canceling headphones if I need them. So I have ways to kind of dull certain senses if I need to. I wear glasses partially because of astigmatism, but partially as a comfort thing sometimes, because they kind of change my vision a little bit and make it less intense. So I'm always kind of thinking about those things. I've had parents who don't feel ready to talk about it explicitly. I think that I've been really lucky in my career, especially lately, because of the setting that I work with and the company that I work with. We're so openly neurodiversity affirming, and we tend to get referrals that match us really well in that sense. So I've been incredibly lucky that a lot of the families I work with are very accepting of neurodivergent identity, and they're not really scared of it. Um, I do, I have in the past worked with families who are a lot more hesitant, a lot more reserved. I've had some families who believed that their child had progressed to a point where they were no longer autistic, which we know is not how brain wiring works. But they kind of believed that about their child, and those were really hard conversations for me to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I've also I tend to be on the initial team of people who is talking about autism for the first time, and I do sometimes have families that are kind of more slower about accepting it than I am, about like noticing it. So there are sometimes families who are like, oh, we don't want to go get assessed because we believe nothing is wrong. And of course, I believe nothing is wrong too. But those tend to be also very difficult and a lot of conversations. I think being able to like actually express myself the way that I want to, and we're all very understanding of each person's individual like preferences and needs. Like if we have our cameras off, cameras on, we tend to meet virtually. We don't tend to meet in person as much. We tend to be like more virtual remote because that gives us all the flexibility to be where we need to be during that day. And my coworkers are all very like understanding. They get it in a way that I haven't had before. Like I can just kind of talk about the experiences that I have, and for the most part, I feel heard. I feel understood. And in clinics and spaces that I've been in the past, there wasn't always that kind of space or that understanding, especially in more neurotypical dominated spaces. I love art, just any form of art. I have been learning to play guitar since grad school. And it's actually one of the earliest, not earliest, but one of the in my career early memories I have of like talking about something I did personally and like sharing an experience I had with it. I told a clinical educator at that time that I liked playing guitar because I liked how the vibration of the guitar felt when I played it. And she had this moment of like, huh, like that's interesting. I'd never thought about that. And I was like, oh, I thought everybody would think about that because it's so prominent to me when I play the guitar. But that's been a huge source of like just hobby and fun for me. I like to draw. I like to make like cards for my family or just like art to put up on my wall. I like painting, digital art, anything. Crafting a little harder for me, but I do like it. I like building Legos. That's the kind of crafting that I am pretty good at. I also like being outside. You can't see through my window right now, but if you could, there's a ton of plants like all across the banister out there, and we have another deck on the other side where it's full of plants. So I'm a huge gardener. I like to get my hands in the dirt. My partner cannot relate to me on that. He's like, I don't want to touch the dirt. And I'm like, I want my hands in it. I want to be digging in it. So I spend a lot of my weekends and free time doing that. Absolutely. We are both neurodivergent, and I think that's something neither of us like knew coming into the relationship. And we both discovered it while I was in grad school. So I feel like that's an area we connected on and that we really naturally supported each other with. My partner really understands that I'm the type of person that needs a lot of like unstructured me time where I'm on my own and just doing whatever I need to do. I like to just kind of float around and do my thing sometimes. He also understands that like when we are sharing routines together, I rely on that routine. And so he does a lot of work with me to help me kind of follow along in our schedule and feel safe in that. And he's very responsive to my sensory needs, even as I'm discovering them for the first time myself. Like sometimes it's like I'm sitting in the moment and I get overwhelmed and I don't know why and I'm trying to figure it out. And he's never made that like not okay. He's always made it something that's safe and okay for me to figure out and explore. And I do credit my ability to graduate grad school to him because like he made sure I was fed. He made sure I went to bed at a reasonable time. He made sure I took care of myself and he was a huge support for me just going through the process of grad school. I don't really know like without that support how I would have been able to manage all of the self-care things. I probably would have fallen apart more than I did. There's a niche for everybody. If you're in a position that you're not happy with, there's flexibility in this career to make it what will work for you. And I think it's so easy to get like into a job and feel like that's what you have to do. But by being a little bit fearless and a little bit brave, like I found my way to a space that feels safe and feels like a place I can trust with my career. And
Right.
I think there's still room to grow and be flexible with it beyond where I'm at right now. And I think that's the biggest advice I can have. Like, don't be scared to ask for what you want as soon as you figure out what it is that you want. Like, I think
Yeah.
it is a process of exploring and refiguring it out and retrying and
Yeah.
figuring out something you tried is not quite right and going back. Like, it's definitely a work in progress for I think everyone in the field, but that's what makes it so special too.
Yeah. But I would also say that you are you.
Hmm.
Like, I like don't be afraid to be you. I think that's the only way we can survive this and thrive is to be us, right? As autistic human beings, I
A
would
hundred
say.
percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think being me has been my greatest superpower for this whole career. And like I started it from my first interview. I told the person I interviewed with that I was autistic, and it was so scary, but ultimately like I had to trust that, and I it was the best decision I ever made and one of the strongest connections I've made too. I don't still work for them, but I love them still, and like to make that kind of connection and be so openly me was something no one told me I could do. And I think it's made the biggest difference in my career. So I'm so happy that I did it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think we both did a good job. Thank you so much for your time. And I continue to look forward to like following what you're going to be doing next and, hearing about other fun stuff that you do. So congratulations. And I hope you continue to do great things and new things through your work and continue to be game changers for your clients.
Thank you so much, Macy. I appreciate your time as well.
You're welcome.